You're listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast where I give you insight, awareness, and enlightenment about your parenting and your relationship with your kids. In today's episode, we are asking ourselves the question, are our kids mentally healthy? And I think as a general rule, we tend to say yes, maybe because we want to say yes. But I think this warrants a deeper dive into whether or not we can say that with sincerity. I just have been reading lots and lots of articles about how the number one concern of parents in the world right now is their children's mental health and how that has changed. I actually did a podcast on that not too long ago. And it's just really on my mind about how we have really started making this a focus, but I don't think sometimes we know how to help in that arena. And one of the things that returned when I did a search about what are the issues that parents face right now is supporting their children's mental health and well-being. And the dialogue there was that children and teens are really struggling with mental health issues right now, anxiety and depression and stress, and there's so much going on. And that the overwhelming thought is that parents are finding it challenging to support their children's emotional needs while juggling other responsibilities, obviously. So I want to unpack that today. I think that's a really important piece of the parenting puzzle. So I think we need to discuss a couple of things. So first being, we really need to understand how to realistically assess our children's mental health and well-being. So not just a casual brush over of, yeah, I'm sure they're fine, but to realistically and accurately assess the state of things first. Secondly, I think we really need to evaluate and address the academic pressures. So we'll dive into that. And then finally, the schedule of their lives, of our lives, just as a general awareness of the schedule and the busyness, because all of that is relevant to our kids' mental health. So I think this is going to be a really important episode, and I think that this is something that we really need to take seriously because I talk about it a lot when I'm asked to speak about screens and kids and about my book, Device Detox, and there's all kinds of literature coming out about kids and their mental health related to screens, but I don't really mention it so much on the podcast often. Suicide rates have skyrocketed. Self-injuring and self-harming behavior has skyrocketed. Overdosing has skyrocketed. There are so many indicators that our kids are really, really struggling. Involuntary hospitalizations have skyrocketed. Diagnoses across the childhood span have skyrocketed. Prescription medications for minors under 18 have skyrocketed. This is telling us what the status of our children's health is, but we aren't really aware of it enough and we're not talking about it enough. So we're going to talk about it today. The path to calm, confident, and in control parenting starts now. Okay, so when we're talking about realistically assessing how our kids are doing, I think the old school parenting mentality is kids are resilient, kids are fine, and I had it way worse, so they really have nothing to complain about. And while I understand that approach, while I understand the theory behind it, because kids are resilient and kids do figure things out. However, our world that, I look back on my childhood and the world in which I grew up is very, very different than the world in which our kids are growing up now. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a computer. I was not inside after school. I did not have hours of homework each day. I was playing with my friends, being a kid, and I wasn't overscheduled. I wasn't overbusy. I wasn't spending ridiculous hours doing schoolwork. And that is all true for our children right now. I hadn't survived a pandemic in childhood, and that is true for our children now. So there's a whole different scenario here where we're not comparing apples to apples when we say the old school mentality is fine, which is, I'm sure my kid is fine, and if they're not, they have nothing to complain about because I used to walk in the snow uphill both ways 5 miles to school every day, kind of thing. So to realistically assess how our children are doing, we really need to look at their indicators. So what I mean by that is, how are they acting? How are they behaving? What are their characteristics? Are they too quiet? Are they withdrawn? Are they cranky? Are they stressed? Are they angry? Do they lash out? Do they cry often? Do they melt down? Do they bristle at any kind of conversation or communication? These are all indicators that they are not happy. And we often explain behavior away. So we'll say, oh, that's just, that's normal teen behavior. Or, oh, well, they're in middle school now, so that's how middle schoolers act. Or, well, yeah, toddlerhood, that's the way it is, terrible threes. The reality is there is no reason, and I'm air quoting, kids to act in unhealthy and unhappy ways unless they are unhealthy or unhappy. We can't explain that behavior away. Those are indicators. They are telling you something. If you see any behavior consistently, look, no kid is flat and calm all the time. So yes, ups and downs. Yes, there's going to be moments. Yes, there's going to be scenarios where they get frustrated or stressed or angry or whatever I've already described. But if you are seeing pervasive, consistent behavior along those lines, they are telling you something. No child acts that way if they're happy and healthy. Happy and healthy behavior is lighthearted and smiles and engages and regulates themselves well and knows how to communicate and handles things appropriately. So we have to realistically assess with glasses on that say, I need to know what the mental health of my children is right now. And if you're seeing behaviors or emotions or personality traits that don't align with happiness and healthiness, then that's a red flag. And your children are communicating to you that they're struggling in some way. So what are some of the main ways that kids are usually struggling right now? And that's academic pressures. I have shared on the podcast and in several episodes that we chose to homeschool a year and a half ago. It is the best decision we've ever made. And I kind of went into that in more detail in an earlier episode. So I don't need to revisit that other than to say our neighbor 3 doors down just started homeschooling in January with us. So we are now homeschooling our son and his best friend that lives 3 doors down. And both of those boys are thriving. They are happy. They are content. They love homeschooling. They love the freedom that it affords. They love the schedule. They are just happy kids. And his best friend, especially, his mom came to me last fall and just cried and said, I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what's going on with him. He has no life anymore. He used to be so fun and lighthearted and happy. And he's the middle child. So he's like the goofball and he's the peacemaker and everyone loves him. And he was just a shell of who he had once been. And I had noticed it. My son had noticed it. They had noticed it. And she said, I just don't know what's going on. And I said, I think he is so stressed and so sleep deprived. And the academic pressures are just killing him and he's buckling under the weight. His grades were suffering and they made the decision to homeschool and he has bounced back in the most amazing way, and he's his old self again. And here's why. I've actually been thinking about this a lot because we have just seen the impact that homeschooling has on kids. They are happy and they're lighthearted and they're responsible and they are communicative. We have a lot of friends that homeschool and they're just extremely happy, well-rounded kids. And I've been thinking a lot about that. What is the difference? And there's a lot of differences, right? But here's what my big takeaway is. Every time I talk to a parent that has their child in a traditional school environment, they're frustrated, the parents. I have parents rolling their eyes at me. I have parents sighing and lamenting the amount of work and the expectations and the homework level and all of the studying that they have to do and that they have to help their children with. And they're saying, why is my 8-year-old having to do all of this work? And, I just don't understand why we're constantly studying for a big test. And the amount of homework they send home is just ridiculous. And I'm so sick of doing homework at night. And I'm so sick. These are the parents who have abstract reasoning and who are logical and who are cognitive and who are rational. And children possess none of those things. So when parents come to me frustrated with all of this, imagine what the child is going through. And I was thinking about this along the same line. We consider 40 hours a week a full-time job as an adult. We send our kids to schools 40 hours a week. Most school days are about 8 hours. And if they're not actually sitting in the school for 8 hours, by the time you factor in driving to and from school, it's an 8-hour day. For almost all of our kids, 5 days a week, that's 40 hours a week. We work 40 hours a week, and we don't want to bring our work home. We don't want to go home and work 3 more hours once we get off work. We don't want to have to do extra stuff when we're not on the clock. We want our time at home to be our time at home. Our kids are working 40 hours a week and coming home and doing 3 and 4 hours a night more. It's insanity. The expectations have gone too far, too fast, and they're not realistic. Our kids should not be expected to do this much work. And I have a teenager that I'm working with right now. He came in, had a session with me, and was talking about, these are his words, I don't have the energy to do anything. I don't care about anything. I don't want to help anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to go play sports. I don't want to hang out with my girlfriend. I don't want to do anything. I have nothing. And so, of course, I'm assessing for depression and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And so I finally say, okay, you know what? I'm going to do a little assessment here. So I start asking him to tally the amount of hours that he's spending each week on all of his obligations. So I said, okay, 5 days a week, tell me how many hours you're in school. He gives me a number. How many hours are you playing football? He gives me a number. How many hours are you working on homework or tests? He gives me a number. How many hours are you going to work? He has a job. So when all was said and done, he was at 80 hours a week, just in the things he had to do, that he felt were obligations that he had to do. 80 hours a week. And I said, hey, bud, nobody can sustain an 80-hour-a-week week. That's just not sustainable. It's no wonder you're burned out. It's no wonder you're overwhelmed. It's no wonder you have nothing left. This is too much. And this is a teenager in high school. 80 hours a week. Our younger kids are doing 60 hours a week. This is insane. This has to stop. This is robbing our kids of their childhoods. This is robbing our kids of their joy and their normal everyday, I just want to go be a kid and play. I want to be with my friends. I want to go throw a ball. I want to go swim. I want to go fish. Whatever kids want to do that they're passionate about, they can't do any of it because the expectations are too high and there's too much time commitment pushed on them. And, there's the academic pressures that I think we all are sensing. We all know that this is not okay. We all know that this should not be the case. And I think, and I've had parents say this to me. I've had parents say, What am I supposed to do about this? I don't want my child having to do schoolwork on a computer or on an iPad. What am I supposed to do about this? I don't want my child having to do all of this work. What am I supposed to do? And my constant response is whatever needs to be done. Go talk to your teachers. Go talk to your principal. Go to your school board meetings. Pull your kids out of school. Homeschool. Find a co-op. Find a homeschooling group. Whatever you need or want to do it. Our kids are suffering. I'm on the front lines of this every single day. I have 3-year-olds coming into me needing therapy all the way up from 3 all the way up through high school. The pressures and the stressors and everything they're going through, it's too much. And our kids are not mentally healthy. So we have to be the ones that say enough is enough, and we have to take a stand and we have to make changes. And I know not everyone can homeschool. You personally might not be able to homeschool, but I guarantee you can find someone that will homeschool your child because they're already homeschooling theirs. I guarantee you can find a local co-op that you can drop your kid off and there's only like 5 or 6 kids and they do a homeschool curriculum where they meet somewhere each day. I guarantee you can find resources to help. And if you don't want to go the homeschool route, then go advocate for your kids at your public school and say, this is not okay. And I'm not going to have my kids working 60 hours a week academically. Whatever you need to do, our kids need our help. They don't know what the solution is because they don't think cognitively. We do. So finally, to pile on to all of the other academic stuff that's going on, we're too busy. We overschedule. We have hectic lives. And not only are our kids doing 60 to 80 hours of academic work each week, but then they're in multiple sports and multiple clubs and multiple groups, and we are always on the go and we're eating on the way, and there's just no downtime. There's no playtime. There's no rest time. So when we think about the scheduling of what our children are facing, often they're waking up early. Often they're going to bed late. They are on the go all the time. They go from school to sports, to Girl Scouts, to church, to home. The pace is too hectic, too frantic, too busy. And it is okay to plan downtime. It is okay to schedule in nothing, to literally schedule the word nothing in the calendar, because our kids need time to just be kids and decompress and play and be with their friends and explore and discover and think and read and imagine and create. Where is their time to do any of this? We've taken PE out of schools. We've taken art and music out of schools. We've made schools start earlier. We've made schools go longer in the day. We have added all of this stuff to our kids' plate, and they can't be kids anymore. And it's no wonder that they are not happy and they're not healthy, and that there's suicide and that there's drug use and that there's self-harm and that there's diagnoses of anxiety and depression and all of this stuff. Why? Because this isn't childhood. Kids are wired to play and be free and be unencumbered and uninhibited and just let things develop the way they develop because the world is an amazing place. And we've robbed all of our kids of that freedom. Not we, but the way that our society has changed in the last 10 or so years, we've taken all of that away. So we created a quote this week, we meaning Eric and I, my husband and I, and I'm just going to read it to you because I think that it kind of summarizes this entire episode. Parents often have a deep sense of what their child needs, but doubts and fears prevent them from taking action. One of the goals of a play therapist is to simply give permission to parents to do what their heart already knows. So let me say that again. Parents often have a deep sense of what their child needs, but doubts and fears prevent them from taking action. One of the goals of a play therapist is to simply give permission to parents to do what their heart already knows. So, I deeply believe that you all know what your child needs. I think you sense it, I think you're aware of it, and I think that you know. But your doubts and your fears can get in the way. And they prevent you from taking action because there's so much unknown and there's so much unpredictability in, well, what if I go talk to the school? What if this happens? What if I decide to homeschool? And what if... Okay, so yeah, there's all of these unknowns and those fears and doubts creep in. But my job as a play therapist and the reason why I host this podcast is because sometimes I think that the best way that I can advocate for the health and well-being of kids across this entire world is to give parents permission to do the things that you already know need to be done. So I hope that this encourages you. I hope that this inspires you. I hope that this creates a passion and a fire for recognizing what your kids need and doing whatever it takes, because no one else is advocating for your kids. No one else is standing up for your kids. In fact, often the decisions that are made around us related to our kids are not in our kids' best interests at all. What's happening in the academic world right now is terrible for our kids. They're not thinking about your child when they make these decisions. You're the only one who's going to. And so, we have a God-given responsibility to make sure that our kids are the happiest they can be. That's a huge responsibility that we have. But that's the responsibility we took up when we had kids. And so I hope that this encourages you. I hope that this lights a fire. I hope that this inspires you. I hope that you go and you start making decisions. And look, start with something small. You don't have to change the world all at once, right? It starts with one. So make one small change this week. Schedule a consultation with a teacher. Schedule a meeting with a principal. Go and talk to the people at your child's school. Find out when the next school board meeting is. Whatever you need to do. Look up homeschooling groups in your community. Look up homeschool curriculum. The Good and the Beautiful is amazing. If you're at all interested in curriculum, I'm not going to make a cent from saying that. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever other than we use their curriculum. The Good and the Beautiful, it's amazing. Whatever you need to do, just take one step, because our children's mental health matters and we have to be on the front lines of that. I'm on the front lines of it every day. Trust me. You don't want to be there. You don't want to see what I see. You don't want to deal with what I deal with. And our kids are crying out for help all over this globe. And we have to start making changes. So please reach out to me. I would love to hear from you, Brenna at thekidcounselor.com. I'm happy to answer questions. I would love to get your comments, whatever you want to share with me. You can go to playtherapyparenting.com/newsletter, sign up there. Playtherapyparenting.com is also where you'll find all of my archived episodes. So when I reference earlier episodes, you can find them there. Again, I hope that this gives you some courage to do the things that you already know need to be done. I deeply believe that you understand what your kids need. So just take one step. That's my challenge for you this week and encouragement for you this week. As always, I'm so grateful for you sharing your week with me. Thanks for being a part of the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast family. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and to subscribe to our newsletter, please go to www.playtherapyparenting.com.